So today is payday, and what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, it means basically the entire future of your existence. That's what payday means. Payday means you could either fuck yourself and destroy your future, or it means you could preserve your resources and build a future for yourself, a comfortable future for yourself, an exciting future for yourself, a stable future for yourself. So today is payday, and what you decide to do with that money ultimately determines your future life path. So being aware of where your money goes and whether or not you are saving that money and what sort of assets that money is going towards is really critical for your future well-being. And this is something I've been more closely thinking about as I am going to be entering my 30s next year. And now that I have been working professionally in my career for over 2 years, I've been thinking more critically about where my money goes, and I've been thinking more critically about what my future is looking like, because motherfucker, we're only getting older. We're only getting better looking, but at the same time, we're only getting older. So all paths lead toward making good, healthy financial decisions for myself in the future. There's a YouTuber I watch that says it's nobody's responsibility to take care of future you other than yourself. Or I don't know, I fucked it up, but it's your job to take care of the future you. So it's been a little over 2 years I've been working professionally, and if there's one thing I've learned about work is that I don't want to fucking do it. Nobody wants to work. Who the fuck wants to work in? And this is something I say frequently. Regardless of what your job is, you can have a wonderful job. You can have a job where you're helping people. You could have a job where you're making an impact on the world. It's still a job, and it's still tiring, and it can still be very draining. And there's ultimately, at the end of the day, there's nothing that you can do for 8 hours and be fucking inspired the whole 8 hours of doing it. Like, even if it's something you love, like I love heavy metal concerts, but bro, if you were to make me attend an 8-hour heavy metal concert nonstop, motherfucker, I would not like heavy metal concerts after that. You know, it'd be too much. This is why choosing the right career is really important. This is why, having purpose and meaning in your career is important, because it just helps with the motivation. It helps with the drive. But yeah, what I realize is that I don't fucking want to work. And I don't think anybody, if they're really being truly honest with themselves, I don't think anybody wants to work 40 hours a week. And then I know some of y'all wild folk be working 45 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours, 90 hours. And it's too much, and it's not healthy. It was never healthy, and it should have never been a thing. It should have never even, but of course people need that dollar, and their lives are dictated by that dollar. So how does one's life get undictated by the dollar? Y'all aren't gonna like the answer, but it is by living below your means. It is by wanting less. This is the foundation of freeing yourself from your toxic 9 to 5. And look, I'm not shitting on jobs. Some jobs are wonderful. Personally, I love aspects of my job, and I don't love other aspects of my job. I'm a therapist. I love being a therapist. But half of it is like documentation and paperwork and just things that I don't find helpful to my patient's recovery. So, how the fuck do we escape this? well, there's only one way I'll ever be able to escape this. I either get YouTube famous, win the lottery. No, realistically, there's only one way I'm going to escape this, which is by living below my means, which is something I've already done, and something I am currently practicing is living way below my means, as below my means as possible, because honestly, in this life, you only get so many paychecks. And when you live below your means, you can put that money into assets, which are, what are the two types of assets? The depreciating assets, so your resources that go down in value, and appreciating assets. And I think the main examples are a car. A car is a depreciating asset. It goes down in value the moment you drive it off the lot. It goes down like 10, 15, 20%. And then I think within the first 2 to 5 years, it goes down perhaps maybe even like 30 to 40 to 50% in value. It's something crazy like that. And houses are the common example for appreciating assets or appreciating assets, usually houses, but they don't always appreciate. Sometimes we have market collapses and then they will go down in value, but historically they have always kind of gone up in value. Stocks, ETFs, what are they called? The index funds. Those are generally like the houses. They are appreciating assets, which go up in value throughout time. If you were to track the S&P has gone up through time. The past 100 years, it has like a 10% on average return, and in recent years, it's been more like 7 to 8% on average. That's what your return will be yearly when you invest in the S&P, which is just a conglomeration of the top 500 companies in the United States. So what do we do with our money? You've landed a career, you're making, I don't know, 70, 80, 90, 100K. And how the fuck do you escape this mess? Well, the reality is you're not going to escape it if you're living above your means, because you're just going to be that rat chasing the dollar bill in the freaking in a rat race, and every single dollar you make, it just gets exhausted, and then that leaves you having to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of your life. Really, the only way you can escape the working a 9 to 5 is like you got to rent a room in America. Renting a room, living with roommates, unfortunately, or living in a studio. But houses are no longer a means of, I feel, of long-term investing. And it sucks, but it's a reality that my generation is going to have to face, especially if any of you are like me and you want to retire by the age of 50, 55, if you don't want to be working a 9 to 5. So it's payday today, and what do I have in mind? Freedom. I can envision myself being 50 years old and still looking pretty damn good and not having to clock in, at least for 8-hour days, maybe 4-hour days, or maybe, work 3 or 4 8-hour days out of the week. But you got to put yourself in that position. Now, how is that going to happen? You have to save your money, and you have to invest that money, and you have to look for opportunities for your money to grow. And it sucks because I'm going to have to sacrifice a lot of my life to eventually get there. I'm going to have to sacrifice a house. I'm going to have to sacrifice kind of like other luxuries, like maybe buying like a really nice car. I already have a fucking nice car. And honestly, cars are the number one ripoff in modern society today, are cars. I've already have let go of the idea of having a family. I got a vasectomy earlier this year, which is my second point next to living below your means, is not having children. When you have children, you can't retire at 50, bro. The moment you decide to have a child, chances are you're probably going to be working until your retirement age, until you can start collecting Social Security. Honestly, I just don't foresee an average person being able to retire before that retirement age, I think 62, 63, while having to raise a baby and pay for a baby. It's not possible. So how do we escape the rat race? You have to live below your means, and you can't have children. You can't buy luxury cars or sports cars. You just stay away from it. You have to say no. It sucks. You know, I could have started renting a very overpriced apartment 2 years ago when I started working, but I chose not to. I chose to keep renting the room I'm renting right now, and I'm living below my means. And let me tell you, it's not always the most beautiful. It's not anything close to beautiful, but it is the image and thought and my future projected self in the future that doesn't have to work, that can escape the 9 to 5, is that is beautiful, and it's worthwhile of my current sacrifice. And this is the only way we'll escape the 9 to 5. Perhaps making your own business, creating your own business. It kind of sucks. It kind of sucks that, you know, it's like we have to sacrifice this much, but it's one of those things where I feel like when you really start making your adult money, it's one of those things where you have to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, okay, what is it that I want? Because yes, with adult money, you can go out and have fun, and you can go out and get a nice apartment, maybe even a nice house or a nice car, but those things will inevitably tie you down to your 9 to 5. It will continue to keep you a cog in this machine, and you essentially you anchor yourself down. You are now at the whims of the workforce, and you can't escape it. You can escape it if you have a certain amount of assets, if you have a certain amount of savings, if you're living below your means, if you're choosing to want less, you can escape it. You can be free. But you will not be free as long as you continue to succumb to your material desires, and especially the material desires that you do not need. So I think biggest financial advice one can give you is separating needs from wants. There's things that we want, there's things that we need. Being able to separate the two, you know, deciding between buying a $50,000 car versus a $20,000 car. Those, you know, so separating your wants from your needs is very important. Not wanting to impress other people. These are things I think about on payday. I take it the whole fucking 9 yards. Not wanting to impress other people with my paycheck. Not searching for insane stimulus when payday comes around. Thinking about the future. Thinking about appreciating assets, thinking about how the income I make now. And nowadays, man, even if you're making, you know, close to 100K, that shit don't stretch nearly as far as it did 10, 15 years ago. Maybe more like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Don't stretch nearly as far. So you have to be very careful with your money. I feel like money nowadays in this inflated society is like a fairy, and you have to be careful with that fucking money, because that is your entrance ticket to heaven and or hell, or your lack of entrance ticket to heaven. And you can plunge down so fucking bad if you are not cognizant of just how valuable every single dollar is that you come across, and the power that each dollar has. I've been thinking a lot in terms of this concept called opportunity cost. And opportunity cost is basically when you put your dollar towards a certain asset, and let's say I spent $5 on a milkshake. Milkshakes aren't even $5 anymore, they're like $7. What would have happened had I put that $5 in the S&P, and if it would have returned back an 8% annual over the next 30 years? That $5 would have become, I don't know, I'm not good at math, but it would be a lot more than $5. So the opportunity cost of the Oreo milkshake was all of the potential of the loss that I could have made with that $5 had I put it in the S&P and had it returned consistent 8% interest over the course of 30 or 40 years. That's the opportunity cost. So there's opportunity cost. So, you know, if there's like this business and I want to invest in the business, but instead of investing, let's say $1,000 in the business, I buy a new bike, I buy the bike, and now I have to maintain the bike, and the bike is a depreciating value. So over the course of 10 years, maintaining the bike not only decreases in value, maybe 70-80%, but all the maintenance fees required to maintain the bike also cost maybe another $1,000. So overall, after using the bike, the value goes down, but then I also maybe spent $1,000 or $2,000 just maintaining the bike, versus putting that $1,000 once again into a business and allowing that business to grow and have a certain net return. So that's the opportunity cost. So there's opportunity costs, and it doesn't mean you have to be anal as fuck about it. It's not healthy being anal as fuck about everything, but especially my recommendation is, you know, if you're a young buck, you know, early 20s, mid 20s, it's really important to start thinking in this way so that you can free yourself, because I don't give a fuck what you do. I know you don't want to just work all day, and I know you don't want to work all day for the rest of your fucking life into your 60s, because guys, when you're 60, man, like, you know, you're not always the healthiest. So unless you're very healthy, you know, it's hard to like travel, you know, it's harder to do the things unless you are healthy. So, you know, like escaping the 9 to 5 allows you to maybe eat healthier, do more exercise, spend more time in nature, spend more time in meditation, spend more time doing healthy habits, you know, practicing skills that you would have otherwise neglected had you had to work the 9 to 5. So this is why when we're young and we don't have children and we haven't bought a house yet and we haven't made reckless financial decisions, it's really important. Or maybe you've done a couple of those things. You gotta now start looking around at other places in your life where you can also make healthy financial decisions so that you can ensure a healthy future for yourself. And this is just something I've been thinking about more so recently at 29. I entered my professional career at 27, late 26. And the first 2 years I've kind of just have let money blow past me. I've kind of just lit it on fire, because it was, you know, the first time in my life where I was making professional grade salary, and I just had to live a little bit of that life. But now 2 years into it, I'm realizing, you know, unless I want to retire at the age of 62, I need to change certain habits, and I need to start putting my money in and have the money work for me versus me working for the money and just recklessly spending it. It's been fun times in my 20s, but now as I get into my 30s, I'm realizing that it's either now or never, and every single dollar that I make right now in my youth has a higher long-term earning potential if I were to put it in appreciating assets. And that concept, once, you know, when you're in your 20s, you're just like, you just want to go towards every single little dopamine trap there is. But once that lesson settles in your mind and your spirit, that every single dollar that you have in your 20s is more valuable than any other dollar, because there's time, because of the concept of time. So basically what I'm saying is like $5 at 25 is more valuable than $5 at 35, because you can invest that $5, and, you know, the time between 25 and 35, that dollar grows, and it grows through time, and versus the $5 you got at 35, given the appreciating asset is like a consistent, the interest is consistent. Maybe you make the same $5, you invest it and you have very high returns, whatever investment, whatever business is booming. It can also work like that, but when you're younger, there's just more time, and time when it comes to stocks, when it comes to a business, is one of those things that it is the number one money maker, is time. So time in the market is the most important thing. So that's why it's so important to make this mental transition when you are coming into your 30s or in your 20s, making that mental shift like, okay, I really have the power right now. If I were to discipline my mind, if I were to practice more impulse control, if I were to practice more healthy decisions, I can actually completely change my life in 20, 30 years, and I can free myself. And that is a beautiful thing and a life-changing thing, but it requires you to make that mental shift and accept certain things. For example, like the things I've already stated, not owning a massive house, not going on these luxurious vacations or trips, maybe having to say no to certain fun things, deciding not to have children, maybe not deciding to have certain pets or a pet. There's certain sacrifices we have to make in order to achieve that long-term freedom, and to escape. And so these are the things I think about on payday, because payday, it's changed. The vibe of payday has changed to me ever since I was younger. 2 years ago, well, like 5 years. I've been getting paid now. I've been working now for five years, and when you first start getting paid, it's a big ass dopamine rush, and it's just right now, right here, right now, present moment. Let's have fun. But then you get older and you're like, I'm getting a little bit more tired making this money, and I'm getting older, and I don't want to do this anymore, and I really need to find a way to fucking escape this fucking hellhole that is American capitalism, and the only way to do that is to get more discipline. So guys, make the best decisions for yourselves. If you're still in your 20s, you have so much time to still to escape and to build a life worth living. And even if you're older, there's ways to manage and I feel like circumvent certain things, and there's always opportunities, and so we got to look for that. But especially if you are in your 20s, think twice about your money. Think twice about your future well-being. Think about your older self. The only person that can take care of your older self is your present self, and your present self has to guard your older self like a fucking bulldog. Like, I want your present self to protect and love your older self, so that you can eventually have some freedom, so that you can be free from this fucking prison of capitalism. Because it's not a joke, and inflation is a fucking dragon, and only the disciplined will survive it. Imagine yourself being very elderly and frail and having to work and being sick. I mean, dude, sometimes I'm just sick. I get a little tummy ache right now at the age of 29. I already feel like it's the fucking worst thing to ever experience in humanity. Did that even make sense? No, but you know what I'm saying, bro. Now imagine that when you're 60 or 70. Fuck no. You have to protect yourself, guys. You have to think about the future self. I think there was a psychology class. No, it was a cognitive science class I did where they showed people like images of how they would look like in their older age, and that actually helped people make better financial decisions. So I thought that was very interesting. I also heard about this study where people use cash to pay for things versus credit or debit cards. And when we use cash to pay for things, it's actually there's certain brain circuits that are activated in our brain associated with the feeling of pain. So it is like mentally more painful to pay for things with cash versus credit or debit card. We are able to swipe more mindlessly. then we are able to take out physical bill from our wallet or purse, and when we take out that bill, it actually has more of a neuronal activation in our brain that probably is thinking about consequences, probably thinking about things a little bit more thoroughly. So maybe that could be a tip that helps someone, take out $100 and only use that $100 this week, and that's your allowance, and it makes you think twice, versus just swiping the credit card at any desire that you have. But yes, guys, it's a beautiful life. It's beautiful being young. It's beautiful being able to learn from the mistakes of the older generations. I spent a lot of time just watching videos of older generations and the advice, and you would be cheating yourself if you wouldn't take their advice seriously and implement new healthier financial decision making. So I'm wishing all of us the best, because it's rough out here, and we are entering a hard world and living below our means. I mean, I can only imagine if some of y'all are living like right at the amount that you make, bro. I would feel like I was a fucking complete slave to my job, and I would feel hopeless, and I would feel like there is no way out. At least living below your means, you feel like, okay, eventually I will be able to breathe, and that is very motivating and awe-inspiring, and that's very good for my mental health, has been very good for my mental health. Allows, it gives me less anxiety, it gives me less stress, and I feel that translates into a healthy state of being, a healthy personality. I think other people could even sense it when I'm just not very stressed out, because I live below my means, and I hear these stories of people who live below their means, and their personalities are impacted by it very positively, because there's not as much stress, versus people who are living at or above their means. They are stressed out. They are, it's just two different worlds of existing, two different modes of existing, and one of stress and despair, and another one of abundance and worry-freeness. I don't know. But these are some of the things I'm thinking about on payday, guys. It's payday today. It's beautiful. What are we going to do with the money? We have to make it work for us. We have to make it count for our future self. So payday is our exit ticket out. So be smart with that. Use it wisely and escape. Free yourself. Free yourself. And I get it. Maybe some of you are not yet in that mode yet, or you still need to get some of the partying out of you. Completely respect that. You got to get it out of you. I completely understand that. But then there does come a time where you're like, all right, fuck this shit. I don't want to work no more. I don't want to work. This is a torture. And that's when you become an old John like me and start saying no to things. Alrighty, guys. Hopefully y'all gathered something from this video. I hope y'all have a wonderful weekend. Why is it the coldest December I've ever felt in my life out here? It's fucking cold, and the weather just switched like that. It went from like 70s, 80s to 40s. There was no 60s or 50s. It just went from 70s, 80s to 40s and 30s, and it's fucking cold. And yeah, I'm not a fan. So I don't know. Is that the universe telling me to move to San Diego? I don't know. We'll see about it. Alrighty, guys. Well, that would go against my living below my means plan, huh? Oh well. Well, guys, peace and love.